All right. Last minute, we put this together. I'm pretty fucking stoked to have two gentlemen from the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania. Much like myself, I got Konstantin and Gregory Deal. Greg is now the newly appointed secretary of the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania, and Konstantin is just a another autistic libertarian like the rest of us.
I'm nobody, and I'm gonna correct you so it's not weird later. Konstantin.
Oh my god! Listen, it's my
I
show,
get that all the time,
and I fuck everybody's names up. My name's really hard to pronounce. Matovcik, nobody can say that, which is fine. I don't expect anybody to say it.
Matovcik.
Oh my god. Yeah, where people go with that is where they go with it, and sometimes doesn't go to many pleasant places. Guys, what the fuck is going on anymore? We have now left-wingers coming out against lockdowns and speaking out against some of the atrocities that have been committed, but it's like, it's really sincere at this point. Like, we've kind of been saying this shit for the last 2 years. They're supporting Nazis in Ukraine. We're going to start World War III, and COVID's like gone. It's the rate at which shit is moving. I can't fucking keep up with it. I'm pretty good at staying on top of things, but like, I can't stay outraged for that long. I'm like, man, I want to do this stuff, play music, these pretty guitars, and I want to hang out with my dogs. I want to drink some whiskey. What the fuck's going on out there?
Pretty quick. It's like warp speed. It's you turn your head and you're missing it. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, dude. Like I said, I can't keep up with it. And I always see something new on Twitter, something that somebody else is outraged about. I'm like, dude, I have like a job. I got a job. I got a band. I got the podcast. And I try to be a little bit more active in the LP than I have been. But, with a wedding coming up this year, it's like, I can't fucking keep up with all.
Better this year than the last two.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people kind of were asleep at the wheel when it came to 2020. And I'm seeing a lot of right wingers in particular kind of waking up and saying, oh, I don't think there's any hope now. And when I hear people say that, it's like, I don't think you understand how bad the problems were for as long as they were bad. Because if you think that this just all of a sudden happened under Biden, you have been completely clueless to the inertia and the weight of the problems that have been underlying this economy and the global empire that we've been trying to maintain.
Well, that's something.
One thing I've noticed, actually. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go.
Konstantin, go ahead. I was going to think the one we're really bad at this. The one thing I've noticed recently is a lot of you talk about the right wingers waking up a little bit. I've noticed a couple, actually, just before I got on this call, I had a conversation with one of my friends who's a right winger, and he was talking about how there's no way he's going to be voting for Trump if he runs again in 2020 and 2024 here, because they're starting to finally come around and realize some of that. And I've been having that conversation more and more with people, that it wasn't just Biden. It was before Biden. It was Trump who started putting all these lockdowns and everything in place, and they're finally starting to wake up to that.
Right. And on top of that, he was responsible for all the stimulus checks and all the bailouts. And so many people will talk about inflation, but I do believe that gas prices were going to go up no matter what. But I think it's definitely in large part due to all the inflation that was generated over the last, 20, 30 years, but especially over, 2020 and 2021 for all the bailouts and for all the generous COVID packages. Konstantin, what do you got to add there? I know you're biting your tongue a little bit.
Yeah, no. I was just saying about people on the right. I mean, it's funny because, they'll be the first people to tell you, oh, none of this would have happened if Trump was in the White House. But then you'd say, well, I mean, yeah, no, it would. I mean, and granted, like, I'm not a fan of Biden, and I'll tell you, the first thing that Joe Biden did when he got into office was put the kibosh on that pipeline. And the first thing that he did was signal to the oil companies that he was hostile to them. So what do? They have to hedge against bullshit. That's what they do. So when they hedge against bullshit, the price of our gas goes up.
Right. Well, the other thing was that in 2020, there was, I can't remember the name of the agreement, but they all agreed to roll back production because demand was going down because people weren't leaving their houses as much. And then from what I understand, they were never able to meet the same demand once everything started opening back up. So people like this binary extreme and these simple, kind of sexy answers.
Right.
I rail against this shit all the time, and perhaps it's why I'll never be Joe Rogan or anything like that. I'm not saying that Joe Rogan does this, but I'm not willing to just throw red meat to throw red meat, right? I want the long, drawn out answer because I want to know the context. I want to know why the problems are happening. And
That's why you're a libertarian.
Right. And this is why I probably piss everybody off, but I don't want to just say, well, if Trump was in, things would be better. Well, no, there's a lot more nuance here. And let's talk about the minutia a little bit, because if you just say, well, he's a right winger and he's closer than the left wingers, and that's good enough for me, well, we need to criticize everybody along the way, because if you don't know what you're doing wrong, then how are you supposed to know when you're doing something right? And this is my problem with the whole paleo route, which I've kind of been talking about this a lot recently. But I've said I'm 0% partisan on liberty. So if you think working with the GOP in whatever locale you're in is the best way to liberty, I fully support you. Here in Pennsylvania, I think we're in a very, very, very unique position because we have a very great libertarian party here. We have a lot of great activists, and we have plenty of people elected, and they may not be, grand seats, but it's picking up steam. People have thrown rocks at me for saying that, and I'll take the hits. But honestly, we do have a great party here in Pennsylvania. So I'm very supportive of that. But where I'll kind of depart from that is that we need to criticize the people who got elected and aren't doing what we elected them to do, right? We cannot become just another complacent party in this political process. We need to hold the people that we elected accountable, so that way when they do something wrong, they know, hey, you know what? If you're not telling, if you're not being beholden to your constituents, then you need to go. I'll vote for a Republican over any fucking libertarian if they're going to be more libertarian than the libertarians. And I don't think it's an unreasonable thing. Some people might get mad at me for saying that, but if we're electing libertarians, I want a libertarian. I don't want a Democrat. I don't want a Republican. I want a libertarian. That's what the standard needs to be.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And actually, the weird thing is another friend of mine and I were talking about this today, as far as principles, right? And if you have somebody who's not living up to those principles of libertarianism, or if you're a right winger, you should be the first one speaking up against that person, because they're going against what you believe in and what your principles are. And if you're not doing that, then you're not doing it right. So seeing libertarians act poorly, we as libertarians need to be speaking out against those libertarians who speak poorly. Just like I'm Catholic, and I spoke out against the Pope whenever they were hiding priests who fondled little kids, right? My wife's like, why are you doing that? I said, well, because that's not my values. Like it's against my values to do this. And if we don't speak up, then how can we expect anybody else to speak up for us? Because it's not our principles.
I didn't know that about you, Greg. I'm proud of you. That's awesome. But, and yeah, I mean, libertarians need to be the party of principle. There's so much more to libertarianism than just, smoke weed and machine guns, right? It's an entire, it's a philosophy. It's an economic system. It's many, many things. And it's very specific. We're not centrists. I need to be very clear about that. We are not centrists. We're not a combination of fiscally conservative and socially liberal. We're socially, I don't care, leave me alone, and fiscally, I want real money. That's what we need to be. How many books are there on republicanism? How many books are there on democraticism? It's all nonsense. At least with libertarians, we have our major philosophers are also economists. Like, that's awesome. And economics is like the most boring thing in the world, but it gets me excited because it's a way to look at the world and make sense of it. And, I think that's a big deal. I think that's awesome. And that's why I'm so drawn to the Libertarian Party.
Right. And I believe it was Jeff Deist who said, if you check a libertarian and see how they are on economics, if they're bad on economics, they're probably bad on most other things. And really, I find that to be more and more true the more and more libertarians I get to know. As you see guys who are really, really attracted by the kind of outspoken Democrats, you can kind of see their economic policy being pretty shaky, and you realize they're really not that good on much of anything. They're the kind of guys that would justify lockdowns and vaccine mandates on the basis that you may save a life or two, from COVID, right? They're not going to look at the collateral damage. I mean, it's like the Reason Cato types who literally wrote an article saying, well, we're libertarians. We're okay with vaccine mandates. Like, no, you are at this point worse than useless. You are harmful. I don't want anything to do with you if you're going to justify medical apartheid. And I'm, like, what the hell are you doing? This is the biggest issue of our lifetime. Our government told us you could not leave your home. And us being here in Pennsylvania, we had, some of the worst there at first. So, how do you think we feel when we look at these people? And how do you think right wingers or people who are more inclined to, vote our way or feel the way that we feel when they see, people at Cato saying, well, we're libertarians, we want lockdowns. That's why you have people like James Lindsay going on podcasts, ripping on libertarians. It's like, no, those guys are fucking jokes. I don't associate with them. They're the same guys who would say, I'm socially liberal and fiscally conservative. No, you know what? Fuck that. I consider myself a socially conservative libertarian. I believe strong family values are going to be the best way forward to tolerate the kind of libertarian society that we want to see. I have a whole podcast recorded on social conservatism, but that's not necessarily the topic of this show, but that's my personal philosophy. I don't expect everybody else to feel the same way, but if sex work is your top priority after 2020, I don't think we're on the same page. And I think you need to readjust your priorities.
You're doing it wrong at that point. And
yeah.
I think you brought up a good point there about libertarianism and our philosophers. To me, libertarianism and the Libertarian Party are two completely separate things. Right. I look at libertarianism more as a philosophy, a way to live, right? Because it has the pillars of what you're looking for, and the strong economic ties and having people leave you alone. The Libertarian Party is a way to help facilitate that. And it's just when you find people who are not in line with those values, which we do have quite a few, and we've seen quite a few even in 2 weeks ago in our convention. It's kind of disheartening, but then you see the movement that we have going now. That's always great to see. I really like seeing strong libertarians that are strong on the things that they need to be strong on at this point.
I am so pumped about the future of LPPA. I am so pumped.
I mean, we do have a strong leadership here, and like I said, I get rocks thrown at me because people think it's all or nothing, right? You have to go GOP if you want a libertarian society, but I really don't think they understand just how strong our LPPA is here. And like I was kind of talking about earlier, maybe 176 elected libertarians that are auditors. There's a few mayors, constables, stuff like that. But we don't know what this looks like as you kind of go down the line, right? Because now people can't say that you'll never get elected, right? Because, okay, we've proven that wrong. People can't say that you can't grow the party because we've proven that wrong. I mean, look at last year's convention to this year's convention. I mean, there was exponentially more people at the convention this year. And it's not like these are all lolberts. I mean, these are people serious about libertarianism. So it makes me very, very optimistic for the future of this state, being that we've been kind of a Democratic shithole for quite a few years. I think the tide can definitely change if we not only hold our own accountable, but we continue to push, this forward. So when it comes to you guys kind of talking to your friends, family, or people kind of in your locale, how do they seem to react to the LPPA and kind of what we're doing?
It's funny. People, so the Republicans are totally losing their base, and I'm so pumped that people are actually noticing it. I've actually even started to kind of, so Scott Horton has a thing that he says that attack the right from the right and the left from the left. And I like to think I've gotten pretty good at that. But I'm much better at attacking the right from the right because that's where I like to live. And the conclusion, so that I bring everybody to is the easiest one is with guns. So I've spent a lot of time in the firearms industry, and I'm pretty familiar with the ATF and all the stupid laws we have. And if you look back in history, the vast majority of all gun control passed at the federal level was by Republicans. Mm-hmm. The reason that you can't have, like, the number one piece of activism that I get like really pumped about is introducing young people or even people on the left to machine guns, because everybody does the face. Everybody, after they shoot a machine gun, they get they get just this overwhelming sensation just of giggling, and it's the most fun that you can have for about 20 bucks. And you know, but the Republicans are the reason that they compromised away our machine guns. Republicans are the reason why they had the assault weapons ban in the 90s, because a lot of people forget, although Clinton signed it, that was passed and pushed through on the Bush Senior administration. Clinton came into office and just, oh yeah, okay, I'll sign this, sure. The only reason that it had a sunset on it was because it was probably written by Republicans. Sorry, the same thing. But there just recently I saw there was a big piece of legislation that was, I guess, and I'm not sure how it works. I haven't read into the whole thing yet, but it looks like it nullifies Second Amendment sanctuary cities or sanctuary states or locales or whatever. And somehow it's a piece of federal legislation that overrides that. So and it was passed mostly by Republicans, which is like, that made me really upset. But you know, the people that are all about rah states' rights are now taking away the states' rights to prevent the federal government from infringing on their rights. Like, come on. And these are the Republicans. The Republicans should care about your constitutional rights, but it's clear that they don't. And like, people get all excited about, oh, we got to have a convention of states. We got to have a convention of states. The first thing, mark my words, the first thing that if they get away with it, the first thing that they will do is they will destroy the Second Amendment. Guaranteed. They will compromise on that to get whatever other nonsense they want.
That's a good point. Yeah, now where I'm at, I'm about 87% Republican. I'm very, very heavy Republican in my area in rural Butler County. And I like to, you know, you hear this a lot in libertarianism is you meet them where they are. I like to get them to start agreeing to a couple things that I believe in, such as we start with something easy, so you know, mask mandates, things like that. Then I try to do my best to walk them towards some of the other libertarian philosophy. A lot of times like you, Kyle, I get some rocks thrown at me, and I get told that I'm crazy, and I get told that I'm stupid a lot of times, and I have no idea what I'm talking about. But it takes a while, but it really has been beneficial. I've actually seen some people starting to change some minds, in my conversations that I've had.
Right. And I like that you guys were kind of bringing up the right wings losing their base. When you have Donald Trump out there pumping the vaccine just as hard, if not harder, than Biden, he's getting booed. This is the guy that was supposed to be the bastion for freedom and the leader of the free world that's going to drain the swamp. But then you find out, oh, he's hanging on Jeffrey Epstein's island. Oh, he's pumping out the vaccine. Oh, Operation Warp Speed. How am I supposed to? Oh, and even you could look this up on Yahoo News. He said that he would not fire Fauci because he would take heat for it. And I had somebody tell me that, oh, if he got reelected, I think he would fire Fauci. He said he wouldn't. So under what universe are you trying to live in to say that he would? So when you kind of add all that together, I really don't think the outcome would have been that much different. Prices would still be higher. The Keystone Pipeline probably wouldn't have got canceled, but from what I understand, that actually doesn't provide as much gas as people think. Obviously, it still helps, and I think that we should continue that. But I really think that's probably about the only difference. The Afghanistan withdrawal may have been a little bit sooner. It still would have been a disaster. Like I kind of said more towards the beginning of the show, the inertia of government would have kind of carried most of these things along. And Trump, in usual Trump fashion, would have bitched, pissed, and moaned, threw his belly up, and then kind of let everything happen as it did. He didn't stop lockdowns. He still bailed out all the states. And if you looked at all the stimulus packages, when there was all the pork going overseas, his revisions were, instead of sending $20 million to Pakistan, we'll just send 18.5 million, right? We'll still give him plenty of money. Don't worry, he's fighting the deep state. And this isn't to sit here and just criticize him, but I mean, it's like when you say Democrats are horrible, it's like, yes, water's wet. We all know that. Thank you for saying something so revelatory that, you know, nobody ever heard that before. I don't have to criticize Democrats, and I will, but it's like, we know that this has been beat to death so bad already. We need to criticize the people who have the potential to be a lot better, because a lot of people who came from the Trump camp are fantastic. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she just gave that speech on the floor about Ukraine, how we should go fight Ukraine. But where I'll criticize her is she's saying, "Oh, China, 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 China. We got to go fight China. China's the real enemy." This is what drives me nuts about the right now is that, okay, you have Sabatini, you have Massey, you have Rand Paul, guys who are great on a lot of stuff. But then you have a couple of these guys who are like good, but then as soon as, you know, they're done, you know, saying things that Ron Paul would essentially say, they say, well, we have to stop doing all this ridiculous stuff so we can focus on China. It's like, you guys are missing the ball. Why don't we just focus on America? Why do we have to be enemies with people? Why do we have to have this big, bad, tough leader? No one's going to come over here and fuck with us. We got a bigger military than everybody else in the world. And not only that, they want stuff that we can produce, and we want stuff that they can produce. Why go to war?
Because they don't understand economics.
Exactly. Right.
That's what it always comes down to.
And the thing is that we're benefiting. Oh, sorry. We're benefiting from this whole deal with China. Greg, go ahead.
I was going to say, and our greatest export is our military power. That's what it is. That's what we do. That's coming from somebody who is in the Army. That is what we provide. And we're the world police, you know, in many ways, when we have no business being anywhere.
Right. I completely agree. So, Konstantin, you can kind of add on to this where you see necessary, but this might be a little bit more targeted towards Greg. When I hear people say all police are bad people, I kind of get annoyed because this goes back to one of the things that just grinds my gears when people go to extremes, right? I don't think all police are bad people. I think they've been given bad knowledge, and they've been given a bad card set, if you kind of understand what I'm saying, where they've been taught from the time they're young that police serve and protect. Well, when they arrest people who are being peaceful people, just smoking weed in the house, when they do that, or when they arrest people on possession charges, they legitimately are convinced that they're protecting and serving. We know that they're not. I kind of apply this to the same deal as like people who are in the military, where they legitimately think they're fighting for our freedoms. We know that what they're doing is wrong. I don't think they're all bad people. I just think that they've been given bad information. Greg, how do you feel about that? What's kind of your thoughts? And Konstantin, you can add whatever. Obviously, after Greg's kind of given his 2 cents. Well, 5 cents now.
Sure. Well, sure. I mean, again, I don't believe all cops are bad. I agree with you there, and same with the military. A lot of people will join the military usually for a couple things that I've seen. Number one is because they have this grand idea that they're going to help defend the country. I've seen that a lot, and actually, believe it or not, that the second biggest reason is for them to pay for school. Schooling is the second biggest thing that they use the military for. Yeah, they get this grand idea, and then they kind of get exploited in many ways, and they leave jaded. I was just in the PA National Guard, and it actually helped me drive me farther towards libertarianism, just seeing the waste of taxpayer dollars that we were just wasting on a daily basis. And like I said, a lot of these people, a lot of our veterans are leaving jaded. And in my opinion, actually, it's a great avenue to try to find more libertarians personally. But it's really kind of tough to define that. And that's why I really firmly believe in the Defend the Guard legislation that we're looking at passing. It's making it basically showing that it's unconstitutional for the president to use National Guardsmen to go overseas if there's not a declaration of war, which I think is great. Now, what I did, I was a truck driver, so I was never deployed. And I actually enjoyed what I did because a lot of times we would be doing things to help people. When the turnpike got shut down, we'd be out there shoveling people out of their cars. We'd be driving them, taking them to hotels and things like that during, emergencies. We helped plow downtown Pittsburgh because the trucks couldn't get out. And those are the things that, that a National Guard, should be doing within their state, which I think is, a great thing. But we shouldn't be overseas fighting wars that we have no business being in the first place, and there's no actual declaration of war. So I think that people join for those reasons, and then ultimately end up getting jaded and hating the military, hating the United States, and hating everything about it.
Konstantin, thoughts?
Yeah, no. So I know a lot of people, do the ACAB thing and all that fun stuff, and I don't believe. So I don't like generalizations, because they're generalizations. They're extremes and they're not accurate. I have met a lot of cops throughout my tenure in the firearm industry, and with every single one of them, I always like to say, so. You know what I have? You gonna come take my guns? And they always say, no. I'm like, no. So when they give you the order, because the federal government, right? And they come in, they say, hey, you've got to round them up. He's like, I'm not taking your guns. Nope. I'm gonna be sick that day. There are a lot of cops that join the force because they want to do some good.
Exactly.
And there are cops Now, I find that in areas where there's real crime, you end up having more good cops. In areas where there is very, very, very low rates of crime, you end up with a lot of these super cop, captain hero kind of guys that will, they'll pull you over, they'll pull you out of the car because, they smelled something or whatever, right? But a lot of these areas where they really need law enforcement actually have a lot of excellent guys that are indeed protecting and serving. And I have a lot of respect for those guys, because those are the guys that are coming in harm's way. Those are the guys that are going into a domestic disturbance call at 11 o'clock at night because one of the spouses is drunk and beating the snot out of the other, and it's not always the man. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of respect for those people. But on the flip side, the people that, I have a big problem with no-knock raids. I have a huge problem with no-knock raids because law enforcement, just like anybody else, they're given information and they are told, hey, there's a really, really bad guy in there, and that guy hurts kids, and that guy does this, and that guy's that. And then so all these guys are all revved up. It's 2 a.m. Oh, everybody's sleeping. We're going to get him. We're going to get him. And then you have the Breonna Taylor thing. Or there's another one that the guy actually won. The cops tried to do a no-knock raid. They were at the wrong house. And as I recall, the guy shot at the cops and there was some exchanges. And then they realized that they were at the wrong house. Everybody stopped. And I think charges were pressed or something. That guy, it ended up getting sorted out, and that guy lived. But at the end of the day, the reality is, over the course of an incorrect address, they could kill a perfectly innocent person. The whole Breonna Taylor thing could have happened at any time of the day. They knew when nobody was home. They specifically waited until she was home to execute the raid. That's bullshit. If you're going to do a raid like that and you're looking for evidence because you're looking for something that's hidden, you're looking for drugs, you're looking for money, whatever it is that they're looking for, whether I agree with it or not, if they're looking for those things, do it when nobody's home, because they know they do stakeouts and all that fun stuff. They gather their intel and then they execute the raid. They need to stop doing it in the middle of the night. And at the end, and if that keeps them from catching the drug dealers at 2 a.m, then so be it. I don't care. If they're dealing drugs to the kids, pop them when they're dealing to kids. If they're only dealing drugs to adults, if you feel, I think all drugs should be legal, but if you feel the need that you need to take down that drug dealer or whatever, do it during the day. And I swear, I think that should be an extremely high standard. Even if we don't eliminate no-knock raids, I think at the very least, they need to hold an extreme level of liability, because if anything goes wrong, the people in charge need to be held criminally liable.
Right.
and that family needs to be taken care of.
Exactly. Well, you know what? I had Josh Sabal or Jesus Christ, not Josh Sabalski, whatever the hell his name is. I'm like half retarded. Anyways, we were talking about the problem with most news coverage, and this goes to kind of police situations too, is that we never focus on making the victims whole, right? We want to throw the books at people, and we want to, give police no accountability. Well, if we had more accountability on police and we were looking to make victims whole, then the whole situation would play out better, right? Because then police would be disincentivized from acting recklessly, right? You wouldn't go no knock raid at 2 o'clock in the morning and wake people up, because that's just a dangerous situation for everybody. I don't want police to get shot. I don't want, civilians to get shot. I don't want anybody to get shot. Why can't we, go to these people if we have a reasonable suspicion, talk to them, and try to de-escalate rather than escalate? Because clearly, if someone comes barging into your house at 2 o'clock in the morning, what's your first thought? Oh shit, what are they in here for? So when you do things like that, like, the situation is so unnecessarily tense. We go about it such a better way. But once again, if we're going to do these things, then the people committing these acts need to be held to account. And then if someone was wrongfully killed or caught in a crossfire, then that victim needs to be made whole in, I don't want to say whatever way possible, but we need to focus on how to make them whole. And once again, disincentivize bad behavior, so that way we don't have to worry about people dying, right? Everybody kind of gets what they need. If there's a criminal, they get put in jail, they get handled, whatever. And then the victim, they're taken care of. But no knock raids to me just seems so ridiculous. And especially with qualified immunity, because it's like a, hey, get out of jail free card. Whatever you got to do is whatever you got to do. And you can't give somebody this arbitrary moral authority and expect them not to ever abuse it. Some people won't, but I think that's a very, very big risk that you're taking when you allow something like that to be, law.
Well, one caveat about qualified immunity, and I have some issues with it because I think it's a little broad, but they are protected if they follow policy. If they go outside of policy, then they're not protected by qualified immunity, and they can be held civilly liable, like as a private person. So but the legal system is obviously tainted a little bit in favor of law enforcement, because they're our protectors. And I get it, and it's a thankless job, and it is what it is. But I mean, just to kind of give a little bit of kudos to the cops. In my area, there's a particular municipality or precinct, whatever you want to call it, a jurisdiction, where there was a rookie cop that was just pulling over everybody for every little thing, and the other cops would laugh at him. They're like, they'd make fun of him, they'd give him a hard time, to the point where they actually had a meeting to talk to him about I can't think of the word. Just about being a little bit more selective who you write tickets to, and anyway, not being so overboard. And so they had a meeting amongst themselves first before they brought this rookie in. So they sent the rookie out on a coffee run, and sure enough, they're all in the room, they're all talking, and then they hear him call in a traffic stop on the radio. And they're like, God damn it, blah, and they're like, cut him loose, go get the coffee, I don't care what you pulled him over for. So again, so there are some good cops out there. But there are some bad ones out there too, and a bad apple ruin the bunch. So yeah, no, I'm with you. It's definitely, it's a nuanced situation. Like everything in life, it's usually somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, and even to your point there, I'm also a big fan of a reactionary police force. Not having them, hiding behind billboards trying to pull people over for things like that. More like an ambulance service or a fire department, something like that. So that way you won't have things like a cop's going to go get coffee for everybody and ends up pulling somebody over for something stupid. It's just a revenue generating scheme, in my opinion.
The road pirates. Oh, the word I was looking for was discretion. Discretion.
Well, kind of tagging on to this point, after 2020, I think libertarians really should have started to kind of shift their thinking on this and go towards more of a localization strategy, right? Because if you have a sheriff, if you have a mayor, if you have a local police force who says, look, we're not enforcing these ridiculous laws, and there were plenty of them, right? I had Ian Smith on the show, episode 54, I think it was, right? The New Jersey gym owner who refused lockdowns, right? The sheriff came to his gym when he was open illegally in May of 2020, and he said, you guys are all in violation of federal law, and the state of New Jersey would have me arrest you. Something like that, right? Have a nice day. And then he leaves, right? Be in with your sheriff like that. If you go up to your sheriff and tell him he's such an asshole because he's a cop, how do you think he's going to feel about you? And when, lockdown time comes around again, because something else is going to happen, there's going to be something else. How do you think he's going to feel if you treated him like shit? If you're a business owner and you just wanted to heckle the police because you don't like police, why don't we start to become friends with our local sheriffs? Why don't we try to talk our local sheriffs into being more libertarian, right? So that way they kind of say, hey, you know what? This is kind of bullshit. I shouldn't have to do this. And then over time, guess what? Less and less nonviolent criminals go to jail. Less and less bullshit laws get enforced. The police are more safe. The civilians and people are more safe. I don't see anything wrong with that. But just shouting, ACAB on Twitter and holding signs that all cops are bastard out in the middle of the road, that's not going to do anything for you. Let's work on a solution here. That to me is a solution. Once again, just saying Black Lives Matter and all cops are bastard, that's not a solution. I agree with your premise and what you're getting at, but what's your solution?
Not a lot of people have it, because not a lot of people actually can think for themselves. To be honest with you, they'll hear something and run with that rhetoric until they're blue in the face.
Mm-hmm. Well, it goes back to kind of the extremes where you could sell something pretty easily because it's sleek and sexy. If I sit here and say carbs are bad or police are bad, then everybody will just gravitate right towards that. No, well, I'm going to eat zero carbohydrates and fuck police. Well, once again, let's kind of get to the nitty gritty here. Is it the carbohydrates that are bad, or is it the carbohydrates and fats together that you just can't stop eating that are bad? Is it the bullshit laws and the bullshit education that we're indoctrinated with for 12 to 14 years that's bad, or is it the people enforcing it bad? I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that, but I think we need to go to the root of the problem rather than trying to slap band-aids on. So you hear a lot of people talk about we need to close the border. Well, why do we need to close the border if we don't have laws that incentivize people from coming here? So I agree that right now perhaps it's better to limit immigration, but what's the problem? We have an overgenerous government that will allow people to be excessively burdened while they're not contributing, right? That's the heart of the issue. So we could build a wall, and I get it. I'm not 100% on board, but I'm not necessarily opposed. But once again, what is the core of the issue? I think we as libertarians have a lot of the solutions, but it's not as easy as just saying build a wall. There's a lot more to that.
Yeah, well, and also again, the whole immigration thing is a fundamental misunderstanding of economics, right? So when you build a wall, when you restrict immigration the way you have in the United, because I am an immigrant and understand that the immigration system in this country is fucked. And I'm not sure how family friendly your show is, but
oh, dude, we've been swearing up a storm already. We're about 40 minutes deep, so
fair enough. Well, it is fucked. The entire immigration system that the U.S. has, especially post 9/11, incentivizes basically human trafficking in all the worst ways. So the normal ways of entering this country legally are if you're extremely rich, you can literally buy your way into a visa. There's a whole thing that you can demonstrate that, oh, I'm super duper wealthy and I can contribute into this nation. And there's a legal avenue to immigrate easily into this nation as a result of that. You can marry a US citizen, which literally incentivizes human trafficking. Or you can win the lottery because it's just this like random mechanism of you put your name into a hat and then they pull your name out of the hat, and yeah, you're lucky enough to come into this country. And as a result, it is so hard to get into this country and it's so wonderful here compared to the rest of the world. I was born in the former Soviet Union. And the land is now known as Ukraine. Finally, that actually matters when I tell people that. But the the rest of the world sucks. I've been there. I have family all around the world. My parents keep in touch with them more than I do. But it sucks. I have family in Australia, and I was hearing from my parents were telling me the story that there's a young family, and they had a kid. The grandmother so for them to see the baby, they had to meet at a park that was exactly like 6.5 miles away, or I guess kilometers, from their house, because over there you could not travel more than, I think it was 7 kilometers from your home. And luckily the halfway point was this park that was 6.5 kilometers from each of them. So they were able to see the baby and meet in a park. And and every once in a while I'll be in like a Facebook group and I'll end up interacting with an Australian, and then I'll just say, like, I don't care what you have to say, because you let your government do this to you. You guys gave up your guns, and this is what happened. And there's a reason why the lockdowns in the US weren't nearly as bad as they are in Australia. Because at least in the US, if it would have been that bad, it would have been a really bad day. Yeah. We would have had a lot of cops calling sick to work that day. Mm-hmm. I'm confident of that. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And the US is by far, like, it's not even close, the best nation on the planet. And, for all the faults, right? But even though, so you have all these other nations, and then the US being as wonderful as it is, people are literally building floats out of trash to get here. And the reason that they have to do the coyote thing, or yield themselves to sex trafficking or whatever, is because it's worth it. And like, that's the gross thing about it. That's the worst thing about it, is it's worth it. So the only people that they've created this huge incentive to come here illegally, and they're doing nothing about it. And they like to cry and pretend, stand at the fence and virtue signal in their white clothes, these stupid morons, but they haven't done nothing to correct the immigration policy in this country. Mm-hmm. And you could be a conservative, you could be a liberal, you could want open borders, and you could want closed borders, but you need to look at that and say, that is bullshit. Absolute nonsense.
Yeah. I watched a video where they put a 2-month-old on trial. They have these trials where these immigration judges have to go through 140 trials in a single day, right? And they put this 2-month-old on trial with no representation, no parents, nothing. And then they kick this child back out. There's stories of people, of immigration coming and taking actual American citizens and moving them out. That the policy is so messed up. It needs to be so much easier than so much more streamlined than what it is. I don't know if you guys have actually ever taken the immigration test that's online that they have. You can take like 20 questions, things like that the immigrants have to pass in order to help get their visa and everything like that. 95% of Americans couldn't pass that test. I took the first test, and I considered myself fairly intelligent, and I got a 12 out of 20 on the first time I took it. Like, most people would not come anywhere close to it. But just because we're born in a certain place, we have more rights than others. I really think that it needs to be more streamlined and easier for people to get over here and participate in the society and make it better over here.
Right. And it's funny that a lot of people want us to have this global empire where we're going to go send our military might to go fight in Ukraine. And we can also go do regime change over in the Middle East. We can go fight in the very top of Africa and Somalia. And some of these people also want closed borders, but you can't kind of have this empire where you're destroying other countries and not expect other people to come here when we have a pretty good quality of standard of living. So as you make other countries worse and incentivize people to come here, and you're destroying their country, eventually they're going to say, well, I'm going to get the hell out of here, I'm going to go over there. So if we had more of a system where we had more trade with countries, or even more free trade, right, then these people's standard of living would go up. They wouldn't want to leave their countries because they would have better jobs, because they would be able to provide goods for us. And then we would have, kind of the same deal where we wouldn't depend on foreign countries as much, because we would build stuff that we could consume and sell. And once again, you would have, everybody would be better off. But instead, we want to play empire, we want to play regime change, and we want to have drug laws, we want to have strict immigration laws. We want to have, all the cakes and eat every single one and not get sick and not have to deal with getting fat and sick from eating all these cakes. You don't get to have it that way. You're going to get diabetes, you're going to get fat, and you're going to die. Right. And that's where I think kind of America's headed if we don't kind of roll some of this shit back. We can't have, military bases in 150 countries or whatever all over the world. We can't be fighting in 6 different countries at once. We can't continue to, perpetuate a genocide. We can't have these strict immigration policies where you can't let absolutely anybody in, or you make it incredibly difficult and have these arbitrary rules for people to get in. And you can't incentivize people to illegally come to the country and then keep these same immigration policies and expect, the empire to last. We have to start kind of changing things. So, kind of looking down the line, where do you guys see things going within the next couple of years? Oh boy, deep breath.
I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. Yeah. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I think that, I don't want to say it like this, but we're on the right path going in the wrong direction. You know what I mean? We're I mean, seriously, we're heading down a really bad path, but we're starting to wake people up. You're seeing Democrats who are, getting tired of the we're getting tired of the COVID mandates, and we're starting to see Republicans that are starting to get annoyed with all the wars that we're getting involved in and fighting. And we're seeing people who were, normally, for government regulation that are starting to realize that this government regulation is not good for us, and that we need to start rolling some of that stuff back. But I think it's going to have to get worse, to get almost extreme, before we start waking up the amount of people that we need to wake up to make a change and make a movement.
Mm-hmm. Konstantin?
I think it'll either get better or it'll get much, much worse. And I believe that, so I have a lot of white pills that I see all the time. The change in the LP, particularly in the LPPA, I am pumped. I am extremely optimistic. The fact that I hear people like Ben Shapiro talking about Ludwig von Mises gets me really excited. The fact that so we're homeschooling my daughter, but there are very, very few like homeschool resources in our area, but they're actually starting to pop up. So that's developing and growing. So getting a lot of optimism there. So I see a lot of really, really bright things in the future. But then on the flip side, I see people being more divided than ever. The COVID thing, I mean, you could literally part people like to an extreme. I think people were pretty darn close to losing their cool over COVID. I think inflation is really freaking scary right now. If you compare price, I was comparing prices on things between now and like 2008, because we were all talking about gas prices and stuff like that. And I was looking them up, and I was putting in the stuff in the inflation calculator, and we've lost like 25% value of the dollar since I graduated high school. which for me doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but it was 2007. So it's,
Yeah.
oh, I feel like an old man. But I see a lot of things that people were willing to do around COVID, and I'm glad that they didn't do it. But there was the control that the government was going to take over. I watched a video, and I think again this is Australia, but I saw a child being ripped away from her father's arms at I think it was an airport or something, but by law enforcement. And oh my God, if I didn't see red, um, you know, the so I see I feel like we are at this point we are on a tightrope, and either we're gonna make it to the end and things are looking up and things are looking good, or things are gonna get very hard over here. I've seen it before, you know. I mean, you know, Yugoslavia was not that long ago, and everything in Yugoslavia was fine. It was totally fine. It was completely fine. It was a little tense, but it was fine. And then it wasn't. And then it really wasn't. And then it was pretty bad for a little while. And I don't want to see that here. But I'm worried that that's where they're taking us, because it's I don't think that the leaders care. You know, they were certainly, we all know that, like with COVID, like in the beginning of COVID, yeah, lockdowns, whatever. Okay. We were all scared. We didn't know. We had no idea. It was scary. It was new. It was terrifying. And then the Democrats told us to go and hug a Chinese person in Chinatown, which sounded extremely racist. A lot of people forgot about that. Look it up. They really did. They really said it. But you know, then the lockdowns happened, everything was really scary, and then we started learning that that's not quite, you know, this pretty much only affected the eldest and the most, you know, endangered people in our society in terms of health. And they just doubled down, and then they tripled down, and then they quadrupled down, and they still quintupling down, but they're also pulling back. So I'm a little optimistic there. But, you know, at the same time, like, they don't care about us. And that's what has, and that's the black pill.
Yeah, there's it's hard to assess what's going to happen next. I think in 2019, we kind of had like a clear picture of what the future kind of looked like. Like, okay, well, things are probably still going to continue to get worse. And then 2020, I really think brought a lot of people out of their comfort zone. Greg, what do you think about where we're going over the next couple of years, and what do you think is going to happen? I know it's tough to predict, but you know, if you had a crystal ball, what do you think it would say?
Well, I was just thinking at this as Konstantin was talking, and not necessarily saying that's something that I would like to see, but I was wondering what it would look like for what we would call like the fall of the American Empire, right? Like we're kind of on that precipice, you know. And I was just thinking to myself, like, would that be one of the greatest failures in world history? You know what I mean? With how how big we are and how strong we are and how, you know, and how much money we have and all this other stuff. And continuing on that path, you know, very well may lead to one of the biggest falls of overall regimes and countries in world history. Obviously, I don't want to see that. But like I said, I think things are going to end up getting worse in the immediate future, in the next couple of years. But I'm optimistic that we're going to start seeing some people, you know, changing their tune and kind of realizing it. Americans are resilient in many ways. You know, we haven't had a great catastrophe that has united us in a way in you know 20 plus years, but even that lasted only a few years before we started being, you know, so divisive again. And I don't want to have some type of another great catastrophe for us to start, you know, working together and trying to actually fix something. So I guess the, you know, short answer is I I don't see it getting any better anytime immediately soon, but I am kind of optimistic that it will eventually at some point turn around once we start, people start realizing what is actually happening and why it's our government's fault.
Yeah, I think it's about all we could hope for anymore. We've been shooting the shit for about an hour now. I'll ask you both the question I try to ask all my guests at the end of every episode. I'm pretty hit or miss on it, but I'm glad I remember this time. Greg, what does liberty look like to you?
Liberty looks like the ability to do what I want, and not being forced into something that I don't want to do. Liberty also means responsibility for myself, for my family, for my friends, and making sure that I'm doing what I can for them, and doing that without being told to do it. It's that old shopping cart theory. Like, you can govern yourself if you can put your shopping cart away. And it kind of boils down to that, taking care of yourself, taking care of the people that you love, and not worrying about what other people are doing, and not getting in their way from living their lives.
Cool. Konstantin, what does liberty look like to you?
Liberty to me looks like living life without having to turn on the news.
Wow. Simple,
like
sexy, concise. I like it.
Right? If we lived in a free society, I wouldn't have to worry about what Washington was doing. If we lived in a free society, my dollar would be worth as much today as it was yesterday, as it will next week, because the money will be sound. I won't have to worry about whatever consequences of whatever stupid foreign policy they're kicking out. Won't have to worry about them coming to take my guns. Nice. That's what I won't have to worry about having to cover a property tax bill. Without government, who would take grandma's house away for failure to pay property tax that she paid off 50 years ago?
Right.
Yeah,
I think that's I can't think of anything more criminal than property taxes after you already bought the property. It's like such a small, silly thing, and a lot of people might think that's like a dilatory, but like, you own this. This is your property. You put blood, sweat, and tears into your labor so that way you could own something, and they'll still hold this over your head to tell you like, hey, not yet, motherfucker. What does health look like to you, Greg?
Again, it's being responsible for yourself. Making sure that you're doing things on a daily basis to make yourself more healthy. Not just physically healthy, but getting out and exercising. But mentally healthy and emotionally healthy, and financially healthy. You need to be, in my opinion, you need to be working on yourself as much as you're working on everything else. It's a constant struggle, and it's something that you should always be striving for every day. You're working on something, working on yourself in some way.
Absolutely, I agree. Konstantin, what does health look like to you?
Self-assessment. So when you can't get up without making dad noises, you need to take a look at that. When you've got something that doesn't feel quite right, if you're dealing with some kind of struggle that you didn't a couple of weeks ago, got to take a look at that. It's self-reflection, self-maintenance. Our bodies are machines. You gotta keep them tuned up, and you gotta blow the carbon out every once in a while.
Yeah, you definitely got to put your foot into it every here and there to blow all that black shit out of there. Believe me, I've seen on quite a few vehicles, and I do believe that sometimes you got to beat the shit out of yourself every here and there, physically and mentally, to kind of get to the other side. Build the calluses on your hands there, so that way you can pick up what you couldn't the day before. Gentlemen, Greg, what do you got going on cool in the future, and what do you want people to know? Where can people find you? Anything you got going on?
Yeah, I'm currently buried neck deep into the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania stuff, trying to get ourselves up and running and on the right foot. So I've been doing a whole lot of that. 10 hours yesterday, probably 5 or 6 hours today. I got another 2 or 3 hours tonight, plus getting stuff done. I'm on Facebook at Greg Deal for LPPA Secretary, and on Twitter at Grego Deal.
Awesome. Konstantin.
Well, I'm focused on yeah, wow. There we go. First one. I did pretty good. I'm focused on keeping the Libertarian Party excited, motivated, and in good spirits. I am a cheerleader, minus the pom poms and the sexy physique. No, but I love getting people fired up, and I love building people up, and I love encouraging people. And when I participate in the different functions of the LP, I don't have a role, but I try to really just encourage everybody I can. And man, I've met so many awesome people within the LP, and so I'm focused on just continuing to build on that, improve that, getting more people involved, encouraging people to check out the obviously the Libertarian Party, but also the Mises Caucus. Man, I love the Mises Caucus. I love everybody I've met in the Mises Caucus. There's not been a single person in the Mises Caucus that I've met that have like, you know what, screw that guy. I can't be in the same room with that guy or gal. Everybody's just warm and friendly and awesome and just good people. And, I love the Mises Caucus. I love the Libertarian Party. I love what we're doing. And I'm so optimistic about the future, and really, really hoping that we can make it to the end of that tightrope and see liberty in our lifetime.
Yeah, I think everybody here shares the same opinion and the same hopes. I'm sure probably all my listeners do as well. We got a lot of cool stuff going on here in 2022, 2023, and I think 2024 as well. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm sure it's going to be a hell of a ride. And I have to say that I was a little skeptical of the Libertarian Party, late 2020 and 2021. But this year, I think this is my home and these are my people. And I maybe would feel different if I were in a different state. But I truly think we got something special here amongst all the people in the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania, even people who are outside the Mises Caucus, which we all consider ourselves a part of. There's plenty of great activists, and I've had them on this show who are in and out of the MC. And I think that we have the real potential to make some serious change within our lifetimes if we kind of keep up the good work. So any final thoughts, or do you guys want to rock and roll on that?
Hey, man, I appreciate it. I think, like you were just saying, I think we're on the right path. I think that the MC is the way forward, and I think the LPPA is going to do some great things coming up. And I appreciate you having me on.
Of course, we'll do it again. Konstantin.
Likewise, I really do appreciate you having me on, and I am so pumped for Reno. This will be my first national convention, and if the national convention was anything like the Pennsylvania convention, it is going to be an awesome time. And I hope that we can all continue to have as much fun as we are, to bring more people into the Libertarian Party, and so that the future that my kids really come of age in is freer and better in every possible way than it was when I was a kid. Nice.
Yeah, I think that's the future that we all hope for. I will probably PayPal or do whatever to send everybody a couple bucks so that way Yins all can do shots on me out in Reno. If I wasn't getting married this year, I would be very, very tempted to go out to national. Maybe that's something next year or the year after, but unfortunately I just cannot logistically make that happen. So
I think you can. I think you can. If you try enough. Do you need me to talk to your fiance? I'd be happy to.
No. I totally wish we could, because this year is going to be like that magic year. I mean, I know it's going to be an awesome time. I so wish we could, but I just logistically could not do it.
You could have Elvis marry you. What are you doing planning this huge wedding? Come to Reno. We'll take a ride out to Vegas. We'll get you married there. Elvis will do it. It'll be.
We already been to Vegas once. I don't know how I feel about going back out there. We're going to be in the free state of Florida in November for our wedding. So I'm definitely excited for that. Maybe you guys can like send for Elvis and tell him to come marry us on Siesta Key Beach or where we decide to get married. Guys, we will definitely do this again. I'm glad you guys could help me out with this last minute. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this chat too. And like I said, we'll definitely do it again. And, until next time, everybody, I hope you enjoyed. Subscribe, check out Axe and Sledge supplements. Use code Matovcik10, Matovcik10 at checkout to get your supplements. And, check out the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania and the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus for the way forward to liberty. And until next time, everybody, take care.